7 o'clock and we're recording, so I'll call the meeting to order. And Stephen Hardwick, Chair of the CAC Zoning and Variance Committee. We have 3 items on the agenda, so I want to keep moving. Could we have the committee members give their names for the community?
Doug Ward,
Gretchen West,
Michael Hall,
Diane Hafer,
Jason Avani,
Andrea Brunel.
And as I said before, Mike McLaughlin and Sharon Groves are both have excused absences. Any objections to the agenda? Not, they're unanimously approved without objection. Draft minutes from the previous meeting that were attached to the agenda. Did anyone have any corrections? So can I have a motion to approve? A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's 2 abstains. Make sure I get my word. 5 yes, 2 abstain. Approved. Variance agenda. First one is CV 24098, which is 138 East North Broadway. The applicant seeks to increase the garage size from 720 to 1040 square feet, increase the height of a detached garage from 15 to 23 foot 9 inch, and to allow habitable space in the garage not to be connected directly to habitable space within the single unit dwelling. The way we do this is we allow the applicant to speak. You get the floor to tell us about your proposal. Then if the commissioner for the district is here and wants to have a comment, they can speak up. Then we do questions from the committee. And when the committee is done with questions, anyone here to speak, you will get your turn to speak. Don't worry, that is your time to speak. But please hold your questions or comments until that time. And then sometimes if the applicant wants a chance to speak again, we'll allow that, and then it comes back to the committee. So starting, do we have the applicant for 138 East North Broadway?
yes,
You give your name to us and then.
Brenda Parker, I'm the architect.
Okay.
You want to come up?
sure, okay. David Culbertson, I'm the helmer.
And we would normally do this for convenience to have them sit here. If people in the back can't hear, we'll ask them to stand up. But as long as they can hear in the back, we're fine.
Oh, are we supposed to stand back there?
No,
okay.
but just as long as they can hear it.
Just speak up.
Every time I come in here, the room is arranged differently. So.
I know, it's because, partly it's because we want to make sure we get it back in the condition it was left, so we try to change it as little as possible.
I see. Just make do. Okay, who needs a packet?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm assuming some of you with computers are, trying to be paperless. So I will recollect the packets. That way we can reuse them at the next meeting to save paper.
Great.
Okay. This project is at 138 East North Broadway, so just kind of a stone's throw over yonder. There is an existing garage, well, kind of 2-story garage, we'll call it, on the site. There is pictures in the packet, so you can see what the existing garage looks like. You can see it's a little bit in disrepair, leaning, but it does have that 2nd story. These lots on East North Broadway are very large in size compared to the normal urban Clintonville lot. So the lot does afford a larger garage structure without overpowering the neighborhood. The house is 3 stories, so the 2-story garage doesn't overpower it. It's a complementary addition. So because the garage is in disrepair, it's not savable without spending a lot of money. The owner would like to take it down and construct a new garage. It's not a carriage house is what was in the zoning report. They're calling it a garage with habitable space at the 2nd floor. So they're going to use it for personal use, that 2nd floor, as a rec room type space. One of the reasons the garage footprint is being asked to be increased over the allowable is to allow for a 1st floor workshop. Lots of woodworking tools, So they like that kind of outside of the garage space to kind of keep the dust separate, and all the wood pieces and tools and so forth. The stair to get into the second floor is within the garage footprint. There is a walkway along the side of the garage, and you go in a side door and then up the stair to get to the second floor. The garage is designed to kind of be complementary to the existing house with kind of a center gable, 3 separate garage doors, so it kind of, is in meeting the historic guidelines. The tricky part with these properties on East North Broadway is the turning around and the pulling out. Nobody wants to back out onto East North Broadway. So we have pushed the garage back into the yard about 10 feet so that we can get all of those cars backing out and then being able to pull forward out onto East North Broadway. So the variances, I talked about the bigger footprint, habitable space, is a variance request right now, and then the taller height, the existing garage is already taller. This is a similar height. We may be requesting, based on the staff report, another variance. They said if the lots are 50 feet, that the garage is supposed to be set back 5 foot from the property line, which I need to kind of research where that is in the zoning code. Right now we have it 3 foot from the property line, which is pushed back further than the existing garage, because we thought that was kind of the zoning code requirement. But there's space in the yard to move it to meet the 5 foot. I'm just nervous that we're gonna start to get into the maneuverability space, because this tree to remain that's shown on the site plan is a humongous tree. And so we're really working hard to preserve that tree with this design. So we can't kind of move that site wall and things over, because we wanna maintain that stone wall and that tree in place. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered most of it.
I'll just start, I know this, Donna Osborne is it first. What? Committee questions. I just want to clarify, is your house big enough to get more than a 720 square foot?
Yeah, that was in the zoning report also. So based on what the auditor lists the living area as, 1/3 of that would be 893 square feet. So 893 is the allowable, so we're requesting to go from 893 to 1,040.
And just before we get to the point, if you are gonna need a variance for the 3 foot, it's common that things get added between the committee and the commission.
Okay.
But one thing I would strongly recommend is talking to the neighbor on that side, because the commission will want to. If they're granting a side yard variance, I think they'll want to, the neighbor needs to know that it's a side yard variance.
I have spoken to them. They seemed okay with the plans, and I think Brenda mentioned the existing garage, I think, is actually within 3 feet, or pretty much right at 3 feet. So 3 feet is already pushing it a little bit farther away from that.
Well, no, I'm not talking substantively. I'm just talking that it's important that the neighbor know. I think the commission will want to know that that if you change between here and there, and it's a side yard variance change, that letting the neighbor know that would be helpful, so at least you can tell them that. I'm not trying to preempt questions from the committee. I'm just trying to clarify. Now, give it to the committee. Questions from the committee?
So the 3 feet is on the side yard, not the back?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a ton of space behind this
Right,
structure
that's what
still.
I was wondering. And then the materials are,
Were we gonna do it with Hardy?
Yes, hardy board siding.
Yep.
For next year.
and then the
asphalt
roof
shingle.
to match the house?
Yes.
Is that what I thought I
Mhm.
was someplace? Okay. need like extra sewer line and for this space? I was reading in one of the other applications they were talking about, you need to put in another.
So that's the difference between what they're calling a carriage house and what they're calling a garage with habitable space. When it's a garage with habitable space, it's meant to be used by the homeowner only, and so they can tie into the house sewer. When it's a carriage house, they're thinking it's a separate dwelling unit, and they want that person to tie directly into the sanitary main.
But that's already been addressed with this plan. They've already figured out that you don't need.
Correct. That's why the notes didn't come from the staff report. There wasn't one related to that. So I think the plan is I think we're gonna do some underground electric to kind of get the overhead wire, from coming across the driveway. So we're gonna land a new meter there. And so since we're doing kind of underground trenching, just to go ahead and get a sanitary line roughed in there.
Close is the garage to the 3-foot one
Yeah.
to your neighbor on that side?
They're far away, because isn't there a driveway on that side? Or is it?
No,
But there's
No.
not a structure right there. I saw
No.
this property and I've
No.
forgotten it now.
Yeah, where the garage structure is now is nothing. Their garage is about the similar location on their west side of the property as well, so it's,
Okay,
and their house is pushed
So
forward.
there's
Their
no
house is
further.
probably further forward than what.
so you don't have to think about a firewall or something like that because you're so close. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can kind of see on the photos.
That's
There's
what I
a
thought
lot
I
of
remembered when I saw it,
vegetation.
but then I was doubting myself.
Yeah, that's the big trees in that photo too.
Right. What kind of tree is that?
Is an oak tree.
It's a big one. Thank you.
Would you mind repeating what you said about roughing in something? I missed.
Oh, so since we're doing trenching, I think he was gonna go ahead and rough in a sanitary line and water lines. He's not planning on finishing the second floor space right away. It's enough just to kind of get the structure built. But since we're already trenching, we thought we might go ahead and put the utilities in.
Okay, so you're planning on tying into the existing lateral like you had stated, not roughing it into someplace else. And water connections coming from the house?
Mm-hmm.
Is that hardscape currently that close to the oak tree?
Yeah, that's, you've seen that photo.
Okay.
Luckily, it has the rest of the yard, right, to kind of have its tree root structure. And luckily, we're not impacting too much of that. I guess we're gonna hit a little bit. Majority of it's gonna stay intact, the yard.
And it's not a requirement, but since you've spoken to your neighbor, if they gave you something in writing for you to take to the commission, it would be a positive thing for you, I would think.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Anyone, public comment or question? Okay, then this, by rule, this comes to the floor in a motion from the chair and a motion to approve. Does not require a second, but it's open for discussion.
I guess I would love to know if they need another variance for that property line on the side.
Anyone?
And then you're gonna change the first thing to 893 instead of 720,
Correct.
is that right? And will they have the answer by next week? You'd be really good to have, because if you end up changing your variance request after the CAC votes, then you might have to come back depending on
Yeah.
how big of a change it is.
Yeah.
The way it happens if
change after the CAC votes, they'll notify the CAC chair and me, and if either the chair, me, or the commissioner for the district say that they think it should go back to the commission, it goes back to the commission. And that's, the judgment is just, is it big enough that the commission, is it big enough that?
I do have one question, my apologies, I didn't ask it sooner. What is the square footage of the existing structure?
So they say in their staff report that it is 4,372 square feet.
I'm sorry, I meant the garage.
Oh, how big is the
What is the square footage?
1,040 or existing?
Existing, please.
Oh, I don't have the existing site plan in here. I think is it 22 by 22?
That's a little bit deeper, maybe than 22 on the back, that additional structure.
Oh, that's right. It has a shed attached to the back as well.
Will that be
I would.
part of the plan for the new garage?
It does have the
Where is it?
workshop component on the back.
But it's not a separate shed, it's part of the garage.
It's part of the garage, yeah.
The shed comes down.
Yeah. I would say the existing garage plus shed is 628.
Questions from the committee?
So the 628, that's at ground level, what that doesn't include the,
Correct.
And the total number, does that include the second floor or just the first?
No, that's just the footprint.
The footprint, so
Yeah.
it's double the space than that.
Well, the workshop doesn't have a second floor over it,
Okay.
so
it's not level, so it's less than double.
yeah.
Okay,
I can do some. And really, the second floor, it's a half story, right? So like you don't get the full footprint. Like it has, kind of the 5 foot knee walls, and then
I would just have an idea of what that is, in case a commissioner asks that, they might.
okay,
Part of what we do here is try to hash things through so that
okay,
there are fewer
You're ready.
surprises at the commission. That's
all right.
also probably the most important thing we do here.
I guess my concerns here are the same that I've always had with the ADUs, habitable spaces or garages. I don't see in this application a substantial hardship to allow for these variances, at least not in the habitable space. I understand the height variance on the second floor because that's an existing condition, and I do believe that that is a hardship that you should be allowed to rebuild within the existing conditions that exist. But I don't see a substantial hardship to allow for the other variances requested here. My second concern is that we are getting a lot of these requests for these ADUs, and we're beginning to approve them, and they're all different. All of them are functioning under different rules, under different exceptions. The city will be eventually giving us direction on what these ADUs are, and if we continue to approve a lot of these before we have that guidance, what we're gonna have is a lot of these ADUs sitting out there that don't conform and don't match code that comes out.
That finally.
That finally comes along. And then everybody that comes along at that point and says, I want to build an ADU is also going to go, well, why do I have to follow these codes when you approved all of these others that didn't? I think we're rushing into this, approving all of these tons of these ADUs and just putting ourselves into a position that when the city finally does issue us guidance, we're not going to be able to follow it because we're going to have so many exceptions out there that applicants are going to come before us and say, well, everybody else didn't have to do this, why do I? And they're going to have an actual case in that.
might disagree with the last part, because if they, code is always under a cycle of revision. So things get grandfathered in because they were pre-existing to when the change occurred in the code. So this wouldn't be much different from an administrative point of view. I'm more worried about if there is a proven safety consideration to the change in that code, which I think then becomes a more valid, issue than something. So without that guidance, I mean, you're right,
But I would argue that one of the points of hardship is saying that you're forbidden from having a substantial right that other property owners in the area have. And if we start granting these other property owners that right to have that, they do have a legitimate, you're setting a precedent, and the property owners that come before us do have a legitimate case to make that a hardship.
But I believe there were precedents that were set that differ, that we are supposed to comply with, that the fact that it was grandfathered in 1959 or 69 doesn't give them precedence, since the code is modified.
But we've seen in a lot of cases that people will bring those grandfathered exceptions
This
to
is on
us
my street.
as saying, hey, here's something as an example on my street that has the same thing, So they do use it as a statement in their application that said, hey, my property or other neighbors in the area have the same conditions on their property. Why can't I?
And in that case, it might be reasonable or consider on the same street. I mean, so we have to take what comes before us.
And other people have comments? My comment is I think there's a dance studio that's much larger than this down the street from that was approved about 10 years ago. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It's a really big one down. It's close to High Street, I believe.
Off near Broadway?
It's on East North Broadway, General RKF as well as.
Yeah, this would not be the largest.
It's 2 doors down.
My-
Yeah, I don't know if you're talking
I don't
about.
know the other ones that are coming up, but East North Broadway, I was on East North Broadway and Walhalla, and the ravines is their own world. And that, I look at it is I see that's proportionately, that looks like a lot smaller than a lot of garages in the rest of Clintonville. Just, if you just look at it as a whole, that's my, people have their own view, but those are my 2 comments on that. But I do think he's right that in the future, someone might be able to look back and say, this is like other things in the neighborhood. I want a variance to make it look like the other things in the neighborhood. So yeah, to that extent, that's something that could happen. But, yeah.
So, just as an FYI, a lot of the other jurisdictions, especially like German Village, are saying they don't look at precedents. They don't take precedents into account anymore. It is a case-by-case basis. They look at the project, the site, the building, and they make their decision based on that, and they ignore everything else. So it's something that you guys could implement.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the applicant, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say the applicant is what brings that.
Right.
When someone would go to German Village and they say, oh, but they, look, right here, they did it. They're like, it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
This is your property we're talking about, not that property.
But we've not done that historically, so that would be.
In my
Any
mind,
other
Also, it's part of our
considerations?
screening form, is like whether the area around you, how
Mhm.
does fit in or not fit in. So that's something we ask them to bring. So if we set a precedent, then, sorry.
I was just gonna say, maybe it's just the appellate lawyer in me that looks at precedent, but that's also a way to stay fair. And I think people do have it's reasonable for someone to say, why did you give this, let this person do it, but not that person? And we should be able to say, this is why I voted yes on this and no on that, other than, that's just a fairness and consistency thing to me, but other people can take that. The thing is, everyone here gets to vote on the criteria that they think is appropriate, and then there are 9 commissioners who get to vote.
Different people.
But
Council,
but this is city
That's
council
city
now,
council.
but in the end, and does anyone have something new to say that we haven't said? That, that you have, if someone else has said it, that's fine, but if you want to agree, I'm not trying to, I just don't want, I'm not gonna repeat what I've said, and I just want to be able to move along. We've all said what we want to say. Okay, then, I'll go around this way, and then it'll come back to me at the last, start over.
Yes.
Yes.
In aggregate on all 3 of these, I'd say no. I would have voted yes on the height variance as it's coming close to an existing condition.
Make sure that's a no.
That's a no.
Should we separate them?
No, I think you already started, so if people want to make that in their comments, they can make that in their comments. Good.
I wish we had more guidance from the city. I feel I'm very out in the wilderness about, we know that new things are coming along and we don't know exactly, and we're getting applications that are really applied to what's probably coming along, but we don't know yet. I'm concerned about the precedent. I also would love to know the 3 feet or 5 feet, even though I don't think it should make much difference. So I'm saying no.
Yes.
Well, I'm a little torn because part of me would like to see them separated. With that said, it's nuanced. Anyway, I'm gonna say yes.
I'll vote yes as well for the reasons I gave before. So that's, right?
5-2-0.
5-2.
5-2-0, yes.
Okay, 5-2,
5-2-0, that is correct.
5 yeses and 2 no's. And then it goes, so that's recommended approval, goes to the commission next Thursday. Just same thing for everyone, comes up, the commission meeting starts at 7. Their variance agendas usually starts anywhere from 7:15 to 8:15, you never know for certain. They usually go in the same order that we went in. So, I think is if you see the emails to Brittany Bolton, the chair, if you send her like a PowerPoint or something you want her to put on the screen behind her before the meeting, she will have that, she will do that. You can also bring a thumb drive to the meeting. But that's her meeting, so. Thank you very much. We'll go call the next case when you have a chance to put your stuff together.
You're gonna need to make them.
Oh, for the next meeting.
Yes. You'll, there it all.
Seems to have chosen the same architect.
One of my friends, I've seen argue 2 cases in the High Supreme Court, one on appellant, one in appellate, just moved from one table to the other. But let's see, let me move, let me switch.
Okay, who needs packets for case number 2?
I'm gonna pull this, give me a second to change things here. There we go. Our next one is CV 24101, 23 Arden Road. It's the applicant seeks variances to allow for 2 single-unit dwellings on 1 lot in an R3 residential division to allow the accessory dwelling unit to front to the alley, to reduce the rear yard from 2,225 square feet to 0 for dwelling number 2, and to reduce the number of parking spaces from 4 to 2. And I will open the application here, and we'll do the same thing we did before. And it's your choice how much, which one of or both of you wish to speak.
All right, let's start
Oh,
with
May I get your name for the minute, ma'am?
Bonnie
Bonnie?
Smeltzer, SMELSCR. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll go through it and then you can
Okay,
embellish.
okay.
Okay, so this property is at 23 Arden. This is the first property after the alley on High Street. So it parallels High Street and it's like the first house. So to the left is retail. Yeah, like all High Street stuff. This is an existing 2-story structure at the rear of the property. Again, the terminology with the zoning department is interesting. They're like, it's not a carriage house now because it doesn't have a finished second floor. So right now, it's just a 2-story garage. But we're requesting to turn it into a carriage house. So this one, I think Bonnie actually intends to use it for herself as her craft space. However, she is putting in a full kitchen, which kicks it into the carriage house separate dwelling category. As soon as you have a bathroom and cooking, your separate dwelling unit. So anyway, this is an existing structure. It has I guess kind of a gambrel or mansard roof. It's a very interesting structure. The first floor is brick, and the second floor is all wood framing. She's going to do a lot of exterior improvements, so new windows, new siding. We're doing a little bit of work at the eaves to try to kind of give it a little bit better appearance where it faces the alley. And we're redoing the stairs so that it meets code. It's gonna have a small kitchen, a small bathroom, and then the rest of it's just open space. We are doing an elevator as well. We did an elevator in the house. They did ask if we got a variance for being close to that side yard on the west. And we did, how many years ago was that? Like 4, 3?
No, I think it's 3 years ago.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, we put an elevator on the side of the house.
COVID, so
You're
it was a virtual variance.
What? Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, it was a unique project.
Yeah, and that addition that is on the side of the house, so the house is solid brick. The garage is also brick with a shale mansard roof. The shale is in very poor condition, so it really needs, the garage needs to be repaired. And so that's part of the project, to basically upgrade it to make it look more consistent with what I did on the addition, which is hardy board, shake siding. It'll look very traditional with the cream colored, and I'm thinking probably more like across the alley is a similar raised metal roof on the mansard side in the same greenish shade to kind of, give it more weatherproofing than what's currently there. It is an existing structure, and it was originally a carriage house. You can see when you go upstairs the actual beam where they lifted up the hay bales for the horses. And the back was infilled with a slightly different brick, so the horses must have had a pass-through into some kind of grazing pasture area. So it is kind of historical.
Yeah, it's very historic.
It's a nice looking building, but in poor repair. It has windows on all 4 sides, so it'll be a bright structure. My thought is to use it either for craft space and also as a guest house, because the main dwelling only has 2 bedrooms, and right now that is my craft room, so I don't really have a place for guests, so I'd like to have that separate space. And also thinking forward, I'm getting older and might need, some support, like help.
A caretaker?
Yeah, and that would be a good space, so we're not living on top of each other. But that hopefully is 20 years down the road, but you don't know. So, and the elevator, I'm a quilter and we work with now very large mechanical machines. And, I can't personally lift them upstairs anymore, so that allows me the flexibility of going up the elevator as well as hauling the equipment I use for my craft. So it's just going to be a small one-story elevator, not the big deal that the main house has.
Yeah, it's within the footprint of the structure.
So I'm not changing the lot at all. You know, it will be the same. I may have to run the sidewalk and put a separate gate out to, you know, this. But, I'm not planning on any big change there. Just to note, there are power lines that run along the alleyway, and there are power lines running in the, reserve space behind the lot. So basically the south end.
Okay, thank you, and, I think Commissioner Crowell, do you have anything to say?
Only that I haven't had any contact with the applicant, up to this point. And the only concern I can see is, particularly with a carriage house that may someday become a separate apartment, I would think parking would be a concern. The reduction in parking spaces from 4 to 2 is a big leap, I think.
There aren't 4 parking spaces now, so there is no reduction.
Oh,
Well, when you add the dwelling unit, each dwelling unit.
I understand, but just to be clear, I do not have a driveway.
I think what he's saying is if it comes
Yeah.
into a rental and 2 different people live there, you'll have 2 residences with one of them that has no parking at all.
Or they each get one of those garage spaces.
Yeah.
It just depends, you know, how they
The
sort it out.
code requires 4. You're
But-
still asking for a reduction.
Right.
To 2.
Yeah, I think they looked favorable on the parking reduction, the staff report, because it is on High Street and it is one of the, you know, the thoroughfares that has the great public transit. And so, you know, they thought this would be the right location to reduce the parking because there is so much transit opportunity. I believe that's what they did with the zoning changes, right? With the major thoroughfares.
Is there parking on one side of Arden or both?
Only on one side, and it's the opposite side.
How is the parking in Arden at that point? Do you know how
I
many?
never had any problem when I was parking on the street when I was in construction, but,
Yeah, whenever I go there, it's always open.
and a lot of the delivery people actually park along the edge of the alley. I don't know that that's particularly legal, but when they're stopping for delivery or something, it's commonly done.
And even with parking on one
Are you part of one of the applicants? Are you part of the applicant?
Well, I'm her son.
Okay.
He's also my
I'm here for
contractor.
curiosity. But the street's actually wide enough that when there's parking on one side, 2 cars can still pass. It's not one of the really narrow streets.
It gets narrower, but at the other end.
That'll be quiet and let the other committee members ask questions.
What's the existing square footage of the existing structure? Is it that 1293?
Yeah.
So in this project, you're not intending to change the footprint of the structure, is that correct?
Correct.
So the 2 variances for the square footage increase and the height increase are just intended to bring this into compliance?
Correct.
Thank you.
increase?
No.
Yeah, height from 15 to 23. Variance. I'm
Well,
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, no, the height is not going to be changed. It's going to keep the original shape of the carriage house.
Yeah, I think since it's existing, it gets grandfathered in. They didn't mention that in the staff report.
You're already here, you may wanna do anything to come up to
Yeah,
compliance, so.
I should ask, I'll ask them.
The staff report was talking about utility considerations. Can you address that?
Not yet. Usually I think we just have to, have a separate sanitary.
That was my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure. Is that? Cause obviously that's not in the application, but that's gonna be something that has to happen.
Right, in actuality, to run the sanitary from the existing dwelling is quite a bit further than connecting to the two sanitary connections. I've got a little plan here that was given to me, and it shows a sanitary connection right here and right here. And the sanitary and also the stormwater drainage goes right down that alley. So it's a lot more convenient to connect to the front than to run it back through the home.
Basically, you're gonna tie in at the side alley.
Right. And what the city said is if I wanted to wire them together, I'd actually need a manhole in my yard. And so, you know, clearly that's not gonna be the cheap way to go.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say cheap, but, you
Less-
know,
less-
it's not gonna make sense.
Not
It's
cost
gonna make
effective.
sense. Yeah.
Was this being arranged, or I mean, you would have to do that
Right,
That's a requirement.
as a requirement for the building part.
Right.
right.
Application
Yeah, so I'm not completely clear on your intent. You're showing two possible sanitary.
Those aren't mine, this is from the city, but this was shown as part of the, what did they call the plan where they were reconnecting all the sewer drains?
Blueprint?
Blueprint, so this was given to me when the guys came out to do blueprint, because originally they were gonna connect here, you can see there's X'd out to my sump, but instead they ran it to the alley because the addition is right here. So I was able to catch them before they did that, and they marked up the plan.
So is your intent to connect to either this location or that
Yeah.
location?
Just one of them.
So I don't know if you guys can all see that, but this is the garage, and these are the two potential locations, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
And she will be choosing one or the other of those and putting in a new sanitary line.
right.
Did you guys all
And
understand?
there's not water currently here either, so that will come from the house. And the existing water line was just redone, the Christmas before last. Because, of course, I popped a leak right downstream of the valve. So I have a brand new water line.
Which doesn't tell us anything about what you intend to do for the.
Right.
Do you
Right,
have a
so
plan?
I will have to put it in a trench. Right now, there is a power line that I believe the homeowners trenched over for the garage door, et cetera. And I'm not sure if it's really the greatest job, so I'm gonna do like the other homeowner, trench and put in new utilities, so I have control over it.
So I think with this, we haven't got that far. This is like baby steps, right? Like you have to kind of get the design, get the zoning approved, and then you do the building code compliant part.
Are there any other questions from the committee before we go to public?
Well, I guess my question is, I feel like this is two separate entities here. One is a craft room, and one is the potential of a rental. And to me, I look at it two different ways. You see what I'm saying? Because if it's a rental, then the parking variance becomes more important to me. Not having any yard to be in becomes more important to me. If it's just going to be a craft room, then that's, you know what I'm saying, that's a little bit different. So I don't know how to exactly address this, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, so just to give you guys a little bit background on our family's kind of dispersed. So I live in Clintonville, I have a house here as well. My mom lives kind of down over there. But like the rest of our family, none of them live in the state. And so like one of the challenges we have is like during Christmas and stuff like that is getting family in
Giving
town.
everybody back, yeah.
And so this would kind of help accommodate that. And like my wife's parents, for example, are like retired. But when they come, it's a little much to have them stay for like a month with us in our house. And my mom doesn't actually have really room in her house with her crafting. And so, you know, to speak about whether or not it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, someone's renting it or the house gets sold or whatever, is hard for us to do. But for today and for the foreseeable future with our family, I mean, it would be something that's, you know, the yard is gonna be shared because it's not a rental.
Our challenge is that a variance goes with the property, not
Yeah.
the owner.
Yep.
So what you choose to do, which makes sense, of course, isn't necessarily what might happen down the road with somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm at this place.
Yeah, I was just letting you know what it would
No, I
mean for our
understand.
family.
I
Are
understand.
there other questions from the committee? Okay,
I have a question
Yes.
for you. Can we vote on it in two different ways?
yeah, well, once I put the motion on the floor, if someone wants to do a motion to amend it, you can do that. But the rule is, we put the whole thing on and then someone can, under Robert's rule, someone then can then amend it to ask
Can
to.
I ask a simple
Yeah.
question? So, you know, the only reason it's being called a second dwelling is because I am making it, you know, available to be used as a guest home. I have no intent to be a landlord, you know, that is not. But how can did we do something here that suggests that when there might be a different way to word it?
The city took away that ability, as far as I can
Yeah.
tell, to do it in a way that would.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard, because there used to be a nice middle ground that we could put people in and that they
Yeah.
would, but the problem is right now there's the choice. I don't think anyone here doubts your sincerity that this is what you intended. Her point is just, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, could someone turn this into a rental? Yes, they could turn it into a rental, and that's what.
And actually, I went to speak with the city, you know, because I'm one of the affected properties with regard to the zoning that they're changing. And I heard directly that they are encouraging, you know, these ADUs, is what he called it. They would like to see more ADUs along that whole corridor, and I'm right there on the corridor.
So are you covered with zoning? Would you even need to see us?
I think it's only that first block.
Okay.
It's not the residential.
Okay, so
yet.
Well, I'm in the first block, but I'm a half block. Do you know what I'm saying?
Are you covered by zoning?
I don't think she is. Let me see what they say.
I don't think so. I think it's the first half block to the alley.
Yeah, they would have said you don't need to do any of
Yeah,
this. Because I
this-
submitted something on Cleveland Avenue and they're like, oh, this is in the zoning. You don't need to do this.
It's okay, okay. Unless there are other questions from the committee, let's go to public comment then. Any public comment? Yes, sir, if you give your name.
Russell Miller.
Wilson Miller?
Russell.
Russell Miller. Okay, yes, sir.
Hi, so I have a few questions actually. reviewing the application, back on the parking spaces, in theory, it could be used as a rental. Where will people park? I know that she won't be living there forever, but I'm looking in the near future, and she needs 4 spaces, and the variance is asking for 2. So where would potentially, if it was a rental, where would the other 2 people park their cars?
I think
They
they've
might not
already,
have cars.
I think
They
they,
might have bikes.
I think they answered that, I think they already answered that, which is, one, they might not have cars, and second, they park on Arden or High Street. That's if, or,
Well, there's no place to park, you can't park on High Street.
You can't park there.
not there, okay, or they park on Arden then.
Arden.
They park on Arden.
Okay. The next, question I have is the property line, the garage, so there's 3 different, there's the one from the auditor's website, which shows the garage is actually sits south of the property line. The drawing you have there shows it just north of the property line, but there's another diagram that's a photo that the garage is sitting on the property line. But looking at the south side of the garage, it's definitely on the property line or just south of the property line.
Well, I have the actual city.
So the auditor site is not accurate. We cannot use that as architects to locate buildings. Photographs are not accurate. So I believe this is done off the property survey.
Found the pins.
Well, we just have the survey from the survey company.
So what does the survey show? Where does the garage sit for the property line?
It sits away from that property line.
By how many feet?
Is
I
that
think it's 3 feet.
So that's like.
Because when you look at it
Should be fine.
from the south side of the garage, looking down the property line going west and east, it looks like it's exactly on the property line.
Well, in fact, there's a fence that runs right even with the back, and that area that is to the south of the garage is an easement for AEP. So AEP was just there in my yard chopping that tree to make room. So you see there's a power line access between
Yeah,
the garage and the fence.
In the photo in the packet, you can see there's space between.
Is that the survey right there?
That's just my site plan.
Yeah,
Did-
but
Do you have the survey?
So I mean, and it would be an issue if this was a new build, right? And we needed to locate the building, but this is existing. We're not moving the garage. It is where it is.
Do you have another question, sir?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes here. So in her plans, she talked about no vegetation would be removed, which, I'm just pointing out things I read through, looking at her plans and then other plans. The one plan said there's no vegetation to be removed. It's kind of contradicting itself, because then it mentions about planting a new tree, but that's where the black walnut tree is. So I'm just kind of curious about the wording of the application.
So that's my fault. So the city requires whenever you submit a project that you need to plant a tree. So I put it on the site plan, but we haven't figured out exactly where that tree's gonna go. She sent me a note. She's like, it can't go there, and so we haven't gone out to specifically locate where the new tree could actually go. We just know we need to plant a new tree.
And
There is a tree that's,
And I have seen
Yeah.
variances, I have seen people ask for variances from the tree requirement, and they're not asking for a variance. So they have to follow the code and put in a new tree. If code requires a new tree, then they've gotta put in a new tree or ask for a variance. But,
I've got a lot of trees there in the yard, and
Sir?
so.
do you have other questions?
No, no, everything else has been answered about the ADU. Just my concern is at some point in time it'll be turned into an ADU, be rented, either as a short-term or long-term, and just concerned about parking and things like that, but deal with that down the road.
The other thing is, and I don't know if it's legal, but you can pull a full-length car in front of my garage.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of
where
one of
the
those
apron is.
things where the property line is compared to where the alley starts, there's some extra space there. So legally, no, because you're parking on city property.
City right of way.
Yeah,
So they would.
but you know what people do and what's legal are different things.
I mean, when I visit, that's where I park.
Do we have other questions from, yes, Sandy Simbro?
Just a point of clarification. Did you say it's a 2-bedroom house when on the auditor's side is listed as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house? Is it 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms?
I guess
It's 2 bathrooms.
the third floor could be considered a bedroom. I don't think we don't have an egress window up there. So there, it has a third floor.
I'm just saying, on the auditor's
Yeah.
side, it says it refers to it as a 3-bedroom house with 2 full baths. That's all I just wanted to clarify.
Well, there is a third floor, and I do have elevator access, you can see to that third floor, but there is no bath up there, and the
But
stairs,
there are 2 baths in the house.
yeah, 2.5 baths in the house, but right now, the access to that third floor is not a legal stairway. So
And it doesn't have an egress window.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
So I refer to it as a 2-bedroom home, but, you know.
Are there other questions? Okay, Mr. Crowell, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Then it comes back to the committee and I make a motion to approve. And then that's on the floor to either motion to amend that or discussion. It's discussion unless there's a motion to amend.
I'm still, well, first of all, I don't know what R3 means anymore.
Yeah.
But let's leave that aside. I'm still at this place of, what am I voting on? Am I voting on a craft room? Am I voting on a craft room that will potentially or quickly be a rental? And there are different considerations for both things, so I'm not comfortable.
I think that because of the variances they're asking for, we have to assume that this is a second dwelling. We can't consider the craft room. Whatever the owner currently says they're going to use it for, we have to consider the longer term.
As temporary.
You know, we have to consider what's gonna happen in 5 years, 10 years. And the high likelihood is that someone will utilize that
What's that up
space.
for it then?
Since it has a bathroom, it has a kitchen, it's gonna get used as a second dwelling. We would have to consider that.
But that's easily mitigated because you can separate out the parking, and that's the number one concern.
But
There's
we're
room
voting
for
on that
parking.
too, therefore, that's what we're voting for.
Well, I think we need to separate
Hmm.
this, because I think it's great that you're reusing an existing structure and, you know, preserving that, but yeah, this is really putting, you know, kind of in a bind with parking that can be easily solved by allocating parking.
Well, if we allocated parking, that further, you know, it just takes away the postage stamp yard.
Oh,
You certainly aren't gonna get a more beautiful, you know, which I don't need. So
Other comments?
I don't find the parking to be a concern. You know, there's no parking problem on any of these roadways. So even if this does theoretically become a rental unit at some point in the future, I don't see it negatively impacting the community in any way.
My only comment is it looks like exactly the kind of places I lived in for the first few years. When I came into town for one summer to clerk, and then for the first few years in town, I lived in a tiny little place, studio with no yard. And for a while I had no car. Yes, the first place was an ADU, the second, the second place was an itty bitty house.
I sympathize with that, saying that, yeah, somebody may move in here and not have a car, and they may just use public transportation, but that's a maybe. You also may get somebody who moves in there that has 2 cars.
Well, real estate is for perpetuity, and that's why we do this, because we have to assume that the property can be whatever we're voting that it can be.
That's why it's a.
My thought is, that's giving people choice, some people don't. If you force everyone to have lots of parking, when I moved into town, I didn't wanna pay for a parking space. And I wouldn't have wanted a studio with a parking place, cause that would have been something I'd been paying for, but I wouldn't use.
And again, while you may not, and whoever moves in there may not, somebody may, and that will negatively impact others in the area. Because now you're trying to crowd more cars into the spaces that don't exist.
But we do not require that people own a maximum number of cars.
We don't
That's-
require
that's-
that.
Well, we almost do.
We also
may
require
own
that they
10
don't
cars.
own cars to
And
rent
they
that
may
place.
all be on.
Well,
I have
additional
a
parking
right
could
to
be
park.
added as well. You know, if, I live in Grandview on Northwest Boulevard, and, you know, developers or, you know, rental owners come and they buy up the places that I have a multifamily. And they, the first thing they do is put in big parking pads so that, you know, these people can get their cars off the street. And so this could be a similar situation where if someone buys this as an investment property, they just extend the driveway in it.
The problem
They
is,
also
that's
may
not
not.
what we're voting
That's
for.
right.
Yeah.
And that if we vote on it, we're voting for this unless someone does an amendment to.
And just, I know, we have rent a lot of rentals on Clinton Heights here, and people across the street from us, it's a rental. The landlord says they're not allowed to use the driveway, so they park on the street, and you know, it's a wonderful thing about that, it slows down traffic. When they don't park on the street, cars go faster.
It's like speed bumps, yeah.
They're like, that's, I have different opinions on cars than some people, cars and parking than some people do.
So I've forgotten where we are. How do we separate this?
It's
just all tied together.
It's all tied together unless someone makes a motion to vote individually, and then we vote on that motion to vote individually, and then we proceed from there.
Can I make that motion at this time?
You wanna vote on each?
On each of the 4?
Do you have to break, we break it up into 2, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 by
Break
itself?
it up however you.
Is your
It's
motion?
That's my motion. Let's break it up
1,
into.
2, 3, and 4 by itself.
That's correct, yes.
1, 2, and 3 together, and then 4 ways. So the motion is to vote on 1, 2, and 3 together, and 4 by itself. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
To be simple, let's go, let's just vote on that.
Just take it 1 through 4.
Yeah, 1 to 3.
Vote on the motion?
We're voting on the motion to divide it up into 2 votes. First vote for 1 to 3 and second vote for 4. So that's what we're voting on. Go ahead, it's your,
So
go
I
ahead.
vote yes for 1 through 3.
Yes.
No.
This is for 1 through 3?
This is to vote on whether
This
we
is
divide.
voting on your motion.
Yes,
So we're
yes.
voting to approve your motion.
Okay.
and we're voting on it.
Yes.
So something's not clear to me. If we combine 1 through 3, and we say that, we're allowing it to be an additional dwelling unit.
That's part of the vote. That's part of the vote.
Wait a minute.
If
We're
you,
voting on whether we're going to vote on 1 to 3.
right now, the only motion on the
Yeah.
table, we can't change it at this point, is do we wish to, instead of voting on everything together, do we wish to vote on 1 to 3 separately from 4? And that is the
That is
decision.
the only thing. We're not voting on it yes or no, we're just voting on, that's what we're gonna do.
I understand that, but I wanna get clarity on what that means
Okay, that's what
before I vote.
Okay,
on
that's
it.
what it is. So
Okay.
that's what you're voting on.
I understand that. Okay. But I still have a question about what it means. Am I allowed to ask that
Okay.
before I vote on it?
Okay.
The question is that if we allow 2, which is to allow an additional dwelling unit, then is it even relevant that we say whether or not it's for 2 spots. If we allow them to have an additional dwelling unit,
I get it.
I think the answer, I think if the answer is, if we say no to the first one, then the second one doesn't really matter, but if we say yes to the first one, the second one could still, number 4 could still matter.
Wait.
oh, okay.
So, look, this is, see, I think right now we say yes or no to this, and then if, I guess someone wants to do a second motion, I guess we can do a second motion, but,
Yeah, but we don't need to do the second motion right now, we can vote and then do a second motion?
correct,
Yes.
Okay, whose vote is it, mine?
yes,
No.
you know,
Did they get to vote?
the vote tie, and I'm gonna vote no, just because it's, I think there's no consensus from the committee that it makes sense, that it really wants, that if someone wants to divide, if someone here's one thing I think we should do, either vote on each one individually or vote as a whole. If someone wants to vote on each, do a motion to vote on each one individually, go ahead, make that motion. I think I'm trying to save time too now, try to make it simple so that, because I think it'll take less time to take 4 votes than it will be to try to figure out how we're gonna subdivide things differently. So do I have a motion to vote on each of these individually? Okay, then let's start with, this is to vote on everything individually, all 4 things individually.
So we're voting
On
on
whether-
whether we're gonna vote on that.
Yes.
Got it.
If you want, I'll let you go last, go ahead.
Yes.
No.
Michael.
No.
No.
And, well, it's now 2 to, that vote, that's rejected by a vote of 2 to 4, and I'm going to abstain, since my vote's not needed on that.
So we're left with
The whole, everything together.
I make a motion to vote on all 4,
Well, that's already on the table.
then,
You don't need a motion, that's on the table.
that's right.
I have a thought though, that may be a little more clear. We could vote on 2 and 4 together.
No, if you want to make that motion,
In opposite order.
we've already had 2 motions on the table to do that.
Could I just mention a couple of practical things here, so, which isn't obvious by what you've seen. But the alley actually falls down quite a ways from my yard. So in order to put in parking in what is currently the yard, you're going to have a fair ramp way. Do you know what I'm saying? So it is more than 2 spaces. It would take up most of the yard by the time I had the grading, adjusted to apply for that. So the yard was never set up for a driveway.
May I make a suggestion on how to do this? Let's vote on the thing as a whole, and if you, in your comments, you wish to say my vote would be different if you were dividing these separately, make that as your comment, you'll record it in the minutes, and the commission will see that. Because our final vote really is not the most important thing, the comments are important. So we have this motion on the table to approve it as approved. We have the rule, everyone is allowed to make comments when they vote so that the commissioners can see why they voted and how they did. So unless there are further comments, go ahead. We're voting on the application.
We're voting on the actual application.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
I will vote yes, but I'm very concerned about the parking. However, if there's repairs that need to be done to the structure, and this is the best way to preserve that existing structure, then it makes sense to approve it as a whole.
No.
And that's 3 to 3, and the chair votes yes for the reasons I stated before, so it goes to the commission with a recommendation for approval 4 to 3. And I think you'll discover that this whole ADU issue is something that commissioners all have different opinions on, and I have learned never to predict how they'll vote.
But they'll all be different.
There'll be different people. If you have a question about the commission operates the 2, I talked about Commissioner Crowell procedurally, it's Chair Bolton runs the meeting. And again, if you have things you want her to put on the screen behind her
Okay,
in the library, email them to her in advance or bring a thumb drive.
okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And you know when the meeting is.
Thank you.
And you get to hear a
Thank you.
third voice, I believe. Good luck.
Okay, now, for the last item on the variance agenda, it's 4377 Olentangy Boulevard. This is to increase the maximum area for garage from 720 square feet to 1293.7, to increase the height of the garage from 15 feet to 23 feet, 7¼ inches, and to allow habitable space within an accessory structure. And I will now, same thing as before, identify yourself as the applicant or the applicant's representative, and you have the floor.
My name is Jean Parrish. I'm the architect for the project. The owners are not here today. I apologize. I did not know, I did not realize I needed to bring you copies today, but
No, you don't have to.
Oh, okay. I was sitting back there all sweating. Okay.
That's what this is for. Let me just.
Okay, okay.
Sorry I had to divide these up into 3, but a MailChimp limitation is that it will only allow 10 megabyte files to be uploaded, so I have to divide up. I have to divide up anything the city sends me with 3. I should have. It's working on it.
It's going. The blue line is moving here.
And let's see if there's a picture on this one.
I thought it was.
Let's put this. What, do you have a preference for which one of these?
Yeah,
goes?
can you start with the site plan, please?
Is that one?
No, up one. Might have to zoom in. Yep. So, while you're pulling this up, the existing house is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. The homeowner would like to do this unit, or this structure, to provide a little bit more living space, a little bit more outdoor living space. He works from home, she partially works from home, so having additional space for them and to also still have other bedrooms to use is important. So what we plan to do, looking at the existing house, we plan to remove the existing driveway to the left there, and so that will all be grass / landscaping. Where you see the initial box that isn't as dark, that is a covered porch, and it exists where the current garage is. The current garage is about 20 by 20. It's very nondescript, very kind of boring structure. We're removing that, and then that is going to be a covered porch with bathroom, garage, storage space, and then finished space that's tucked underneath the roof. So essentially finished space within the attic. Part of the design of this, because I look at these little houses and I don't want to design something huge to go, next to the house. And for the clients, that was really important too. So they have the benefit though of the property sloping down quite a bit towards the alley. I did forget to mention, so the new driveway will be accessed from the alley, which is at the top there. So much smaller paved area. We're required to have a 20-foot maneuverability. There's a 20-foot maneuverability requirement. I'm giving 24 feet because I think the process of parking and pulling out and being able to see where you're going, we just wanted a little bit more breathing room. But essentially the front of that new porch is where the existing front of the garage is going to be. The slope helps us by kind of allowing me to set the structure down further towards the alley. So if you wouldn't mind flipping to the elevations. So no kitchen, just a bathroom. Yeah, actually, you can kind of see it from there, but I did a couple sections because in these, it's important to get a reasonable amount of square footage that has height to it without going crazy. We don't want to have a full 2-story, but you can see on the right there, that's a section through the existing house, and then you can see how the grade shifts down. And then right over there to the left there, that's the edge of the alley. So you can see I'm trying to push that down as much as possible. Can you go to the next slide, please? Down a little bit, the elevations. Yeah, so that also shows, so that is the view from their yard. So where that covered porch is to the left, there's currently a pretty, not so cute garage in that spot. And so I actually, from my perspective, that's a lot more transparent than the garage. Certainly this garage is taller than what they currently have. But that kind of gives you an idea of the scale and trying to put it down the slope a little bit just to kind of help us with the height. But also what I do on these projects too is I try to break it into smaller pieces, the overall massing into smaller pieces, because that's how older houses are done. And it kind of helps with the overall scale of things. From a zoning standpoint, all of that could have been connected to the house, but it would have just been a monstrosity of a gigantic house. So the goal is to create, you know, just a cute little structure in the backyard. Like I said, he's gonna have his office in the upstairs, and then he has like a rec room kind of space in the upstairs. The bathroom's on the first floor. As far as the electricity is concerned, we have an electric line coming into the garage, and then it will be buried to the house. And then the plumbing line is, the sanitary line is gonna come out into their yard and connect with their existing sanitary line.
Okay, do you have, let's see, Commissioner Moritz.
Looks like a great plan to me. I have no objections.
Now it's questions from the committee.
What's the square footage of the house?
I
Uh-oh.
don't know offhand. I'll come prepared with that next week.
I saw it marked on the plan, but just to confirm, you are removing the curb cut on Long-Town
Correct.
Boulevard and the driveway?
Yes.
And that porch is screened?
It is not.
It's an open porch?
Yeah, that was the only question that the city had about the plans, and I did clarify with them about that. It's not screened, it's just open.
No kitchen, just a
No.
bathroom on the first floor?
Correct.
So, I guess I don't understand habitable.
I think it's, can someone live there, and then they also have the second rule, is it a second dwelling place? To be a separate, to get a separate address and to rent it out, they need to have a separate. And otherwise, if they don't have, if it's more than one dwelling place, then they need a different variance. Because is this an R3?
It is.
Yes.
So they can't, they need to rent it out without the separate dwelling place variance. At least that's what the city, that's what the rules are now.
Well, check back next week.
But just like the variance goes with the property, the rules are, we deal with the rules as we have them. The city wants to change them next week, the city gets to change them next week. Do you have other questions from the committee? Now, I sent out plans to a number of people. Does anyone come here to speak on this? I like how I did get one comment from a neighbor saying that they wish they would have been spoken to, had someone speak to them in advance.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
and they responded that they, after they saw the plans, that they liked the plans.
Oh, they did, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Sandy Simbro.
I would like for all of you to take note that on this application, there is a certified survey.
Woo-hoo.
So please take note, this application is a survey. A mortgage survey means diddly squat in a quarter wall. You must have a PIN certified survey for positioning to count. So otherwise, is there parking on Old TJ Boulevard?
Yes.
In the absence of a kitchen, this is not considered an ADU?
It's not considered a separate dwelling. ADU is its own,
Its own.
I think that's, I don't know if that's a legal
So
term.
since the bathroom sink, one microwave, and, a mini fridge, and you've got an ADU.
Well,
A
the legal,
full-fledged ADU.
the legal ADU, I think is not a,
I don't
not a
care about
legal
the
term.
legal definition, I'm talking about the use.
Use.
It could be used as an ADU.
They could not rent it out as a separate dwelling unit without, they could not legally rent it out as a separate dwelling unit because that requires two residents, a separate variance to have two residences on the same property.
Does it have anything to do with that electric and sewer?
Without the appropriate legal.
It's been a long time.
So they wouldn't have an address, so you can get mail there.
Right.
So you can't, it can't be a place where somebody lives.
Feel that.
Doesn't necessarily stop people.
I think I remember one variance 5 years ago on that, but that was, so yeah, yes, people can, if someone wants to cheat and none of the neighbors catch them and file a code complaint. Yeah, but so if you have neighbors watching you and you have a separate dwelling unit there, you dial 311, the city will come look at it.
And it was right up the street. And he came to get a variance granted saying it's been that way for 10 years, I should be able to grandfather it in, legal or not.
Is that the one, I think I remember
It
that,
was right up Clinton Heights.
It's like a common law.
And yet about 40 years ago, if Diane remembers correctly, there was a garage that was built too tall on, what's the street?
Yeah, they
Garden
made them
Road,
tear it down.
and they made them tear
Yeah,
it down.
I mean, it was like, wow, they did that.
So,
no, but
you know,
you,
y'all get
you take
away
a
with
risk.
murder now.
you take, and if anyone wants to sell a property with a separate dwelling unit, they get, if someone actually is renting it out, they'll have trouble. If people catch them, you can always cheat, and sometimes you can get away with cheating, but if you get caught, it can be bad. That if people want to take that into their consideration, you can take that into consideration. We have other, now I guess, no, any other public comment? And then it's back to the, Commissioner Moritz, if you want to chime in, the general rules, if the commissioner wants to chime in, they always raise it, you always get to chime in, but. Okay, I just didn't want to think you had to stay quiet. Okay, now it's back for the committee, I put a motion to approve on the table, and now it's open for discussion.
I got one other thing to add. You need to obliterate the surveyor's seal from your drawings. You can't modify those.
I understand. These are very preliminary drawings, and so I normally don't include that, but I wanted to at least have a starting point.
Okay.
So I don't usually.
I'm just telling you, it's not legal.
Well, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, these are just preliminary drawings, so.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Okay, then, the motion to approve is on the table. And I'm gonna, yes, no. We'll start on this side this time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm more comfortable with, that it's kind of down a hill, I'm more comfortable that it's not really habitable. So, I mean, the fact that there's no kitchen gives me some comfort. I know people cheat, but I can't vote on that, so.
No, for the same reasons I've stated for all the other three, we're approving habitable space without finalized guidance from the city, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well, so it's a recommend approval, 6 yes, 1 with 1 no vote, goes before the commission, and generally they go the same order we do, so I'm sorry, you'll be like. So, we'll see, either you and or the homeowner needs to be there at the
Yes.
commission meeting
I
next
will.
week. I will not be there, but the Vice Chair Hall will be there. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
By the way, you're a member, Amy's your old school member.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now we're on, I'm sorry, I should have done this at one of the previous meetings. But I went to the commissioners and to get some thoughts on our forms, and first, a few of other suggestions on how these forms can be better. The reason I brought it to them to the committee's attention is I want these, if we're gonna make people fill out paperwork or PDF work, whatever you wanna call it, I think it needs to be meaningful and useful. The commissioners anyone's allowed to stay or you can leave if you want. But the commissioners had two main thoughts, which are one, maybe include in here a question saying, have you spoken with your neighbors? Even though I put that in my introductory email, that might just be a prod to tell people you really need to go speak with your neighbors because you don't want them to learn it. I even put in my intro email tells folks, you do not want them to learn about this from the letter I send them. Because then they're gonna assume the worst. You wanna talk to them before that letter arrives. But maybe putting that in the form saying, have you spoken with them, yes or no? And then the other thing was, the one concern was trying to, do we need to do something different for these ADU applications? Because we have single family, which I used to send multifamily to the people with putting, that was technically correct. But yeah, I'm holding up now the single family seemed to fit better, so I now send them that because it just, even though it's not what's on the form. Do we want to change that? Do we want to leave it as is?
We need clarity.
Are there questions that you would do differently for the ADUs that we would want to do just?
I don't know if we can unless we know what the city's gonna come up with. I'm so confused about where they're headed here. I mean, I know where they're headed, but with more clarity from them, I think that it's easier to figure out our forms. But
We should send a letter to them.
right,
Are there concerns that we have separately? Maybe the only thing we should do is add the check mark that, maybe I'm just being hyper technical here, but is there something we could put on these forms that would get you more useful information about ADUs?
Still just guessing though.
But just in terms of what you want to know before you vote.
Let's look at it this way. While we don't have clarification from the city, what info would make us more comfortable with approving ADUs? We've seen all of the different versions of these that come up and concerns that we have. And we list out some of those major concerns about ADUs. What's the parking situation? What's the setback situation? So those are some considerations of things that we could get specifically on the screening form about the ADUs and habitable space to get us the information that we would like to see to get us a comfort level with.
well, like the whether it has a full kitchen or not. Kitchen, bathroom, is it a toilet and a sink, or is it a bathtub and a shower? I mean, when we say bathroom, what does that mean? It could just to some people mean a sink and a toilet.
Is it half bath, full bath,
Yeah, full bath, half bath.
three-quarter bath?
Hey, John, to be specific, you want to put a toilet, a sink, a shower, a bathtub?
Yeah.
Do you do public comment?
Yeah, sure.
Let's hear it.
I'm just thinking, just do a bunch of check boxes.
That's what I was just
Sink,
saying.
kitchen,
Yeah,
refrigerator,
stove,
toilet, shower,
yeah.
So,
you know, and you're constantly asking what the square footage of the auxiliary ADU is, and nobody's prepared with it. Put it on.
If we grant a variance for an ADU, that doesn't have a bathroom,
I think
would they have to come back to us?
I think
If a
That's
bathroom
a
is
code.
required in that case.
to be.
So we're just asking for clarification of whether or not it's an ADU carriage house body.
Because that's not, if, I think there's some things that are building code issues, and we can't, there's,
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
To be truly an ADU, it has to be a full kitchen, bath space.
Are you
with
allowed-
Parking, secondary, sanitary sewer connection, its own power connection.
Like the middle
and an
case.
attic. Yeah, it has to have all those things. Otherwise, if it's, even if it has a kitchen, bath, but the sanitary is connected to the same house, it's using the electrical feed from the house, it's not a separate meter, then it's just habitable space in a detached garage.
Got it. So
So that's the major difference.
the floor plan tells us that information now. So are we creating an undue burden if we're asking them twice, essentially?
But if they already have it on the floor plan, they can easily just fill it out.
But you-
It's
yeah.
not really a burden.
It's easy
And-
to search, I think.
When it gets to us at this point, and like, so-and-so said, this is all very preliminary, they're probably not thinking about utilities. Yeah, I live in the city, utilities are available. So if we wanna start getting at things like that, that may not very well be
You
marked
better
on
be
the
looking
plan.
at utilities, that's a huge line item in cost. I don't know anybody who's a responsible person wanting to get bids on things who's not thinking about that.
I know, but it may not come before us with that level of detail.
and probably.
But it's not, is it relevant to approving the zoning case? Just like the usage, how the owner wants to use the property, is it relevant to the zoning case? Because we don't tell people what to do with their property. I don't tell you, you don't tell me, that's not how things work. This is the zoning case.
I'm saying, I think some of it, we don't, like sewers are beyond our, and they're either gonna have compliant sewers, compliant sewers or not, and that's not a zoning issue, that's a city sanitary issue that's beyond us. They either satisfy the city and they get a building permit, or they don't, and they don't get a building permit.
Well, I think it helps us understand intent, like there's the list of things like, this falls into this category, it falls under another category. Because then that ultimately feeds into whether you can turn this into a rental down the road.
But
And-
The question
determining
begs-
rental is not our business.
Right, so if it's not our purview, whether or not they say it, doesn't matter. In other words, they could say something to us here, and if they do something different when they submit their drawings, would it even be relevant?
But I'm not sure I agree. I mean, with the variance going with the property, I think
They're
knowing.
not asking us to determine who lives there.
It's not
And we
about
can't
the
make that.
rental.
It's not-
But for our purposes, it doesn't matter who lives there, it matters that. it
What's
is
the use?
But it
called
does
an
matter
ADU.
who lives there because you're saying that
If
it does,
it's an
because
ADU.
you don't want a renter to live there.
Well.
No,
what we
it's not
look
so
at
much the renter
is an
aspect.
Oh, it
ADU.
absolutely is. That's the undergird of this whole conversation.
Whoever's living there, if they need a parking spot, for
If
example.
If it is classified as an ADU that someone could live in and has a separate address, it triggers all of those code things with the additional parking. It doesn't matter if it's a renter, it doesn't matter if it's somebody's family member and they're just living in the house. There's still gonna be a burden on parking and there's still gonna be a burden on utilities because
Even the
you
house on
added
Garden, that's
second.
a half a block from High Street that has quite possibly the best transportation in the city of Columbus. And some people still said no to it. So it's like, we're never going to approve that. We're never gonna get to yes.
Anyway, let's focus here on what information goes into the form. And I think my thought on utilities is we have to think what's within our purview. And can we really, maybe a couple of you are qualified to talk about the electricity, what electrical services needed or what. I'm not. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
I'll take that one.
But I also think the city wants us to look at what's within our, if we stay in our lane, or the commission stays in its lane, they are much more persuasive than if they get out of the lane. Saying this place doesn't have an adequate sewer, the city doesn't care what the commission thinks about that. Because if they get a staff report saying there's enough or there isn't enough, they're gonna, now, if we say it's floods, our neighbors report that this area floods 3 times a year, that's something that's in our purview. I think, former Commissioner Simba, or former Chair Simba, which title would I be?
Which one?
Okay, I'm sitting back here having deja vu all over again. I believe that what you were just getting at, the lane, zoning and variance has to do with land use. Anything beyond the use of the land, when it comes to utilities, the city, you don't get paid to think about any of this, okay? You're just a bunch of volunteers who read papers and. At the building department, when you go and apply for your building permit, that's when sewers and drains and all the utilities look at it. They will look at all of that before the application goes before the BZA. So you're absolutely right about staying in the lane. Because when it gets to BZA, if sewers and drains comes in and says, this doesn't fly, then it doesn't fly.
That's the thing I do think, and the city actually sent, the city attorney's office is something they say is please stay, they didn't use the word stay in your lane, but they said consider relevant factors to the zoning, don't get into stuff that doesn't apply to the zoning. So they don't want, if we start the other thing is if we start putting stuff on our forms that's legally irrelevant, one of the strongest arguments they can go to BZA with or city council with and say disregard the commission is if the commission bases their decision on something that is outside of their purview. They can say, they voted, like when Jimmy John's came, there were people who came here and said, we don't want you to do that because the owner's a big game hunter. And that and when they got to the commission, they also considered things that weren't related to the specific variances. And Jimmy John's got approved over the objections of the commission. Partly, I think my guess is partly because the commission didn't stay within its lane and focus its comments on the variances. So that's what we need. I look at these forms in two ways. These forms help us and the commission get information we want, and they also help focus the applicant's attention on things that they may not have missed, like the neighborhood plan. There's a whole lot of stuff in the neighborhood plans that's really helpful that if they're not thinking about.
So in light of the, I guess the perception of staying in your lane, adding some of those questions or check boxes to understand intent is just gonna muddy things
Are we
later,
getting out of our lane?
get ourselves in trouble if it looks like we're getting out of our lane.
I think
think they do, at least some of them, is that go to us determining whether the land use is going to be for habitable space or for an ADU, and that's an important distinction.
maybe
So,
Isn't it a different zoning ordinance?
They're council, these are all council variances.
These are council variances.
So,
Yeah, but if it's an
all-
ADU, you have to get the zoning for having two dwellings on one parcel.
I guess
Yes.
maybe what we're talking about doing is maybe a habitable space form, but habitable space form, that includes ADU. Habitable space includes ADU. ADU doesn't
Something
necessarily
about the
include habitable
garage.
space. Because it seems like, do you think all three of the applications should have used the same form today? Because
I think they could.
that's what I
mean,
think.
some would, there are parts that some wouldn't have had to answer, but I think for the questions that you would be wanting to have them answer, it would pretty much be the same form.
I think it's, I think I think that's correct. I think if we say, does this include a kitchen? Does this include a toilet? Does this include a shower, a bathtub? How many sinks does it include? Those are the kind of things that help people understand what the use is.
What the use is.
What the use is. You're not saying, will you rent it out?
I don't think we asked that.
Definitely.
Where do you, why do you think what is your plan for parking in terms of the transportation needs of the people there? Are people gonna take the bus? Do you expect them to share parking? What are your plans for parking if this becomes?
They're not required to have a plan.
They're required
If
to
it's
have.
an ADU, you may.
But if
You're
they're
asking for a parking reduction.
If they're asking for a parking reduction, I think it's fair for them to say.
One of the three cases had a parking reduction.
Maybe
It's true, but even if you're asking for that variance, you're not required to provide a plan that shows what you're gonna do.
Maybe not a plan, but why do you think this isn't a problem?
We ask for it from commercial developers all the time. It's like, where is your parking agreement? Or do you have a parking agreement with other businesses nearby to help mitigate the reduction you're asking?
Or do you think that
So
people?
why isn't it fair to ask residential applicants for the same question.
Or you could also say,
I'm not sure it's good to ask the commercial guys either, but.
you could also say, why do you think you don't need parking? Because you think
Yeah.
people are gonna take the bus.
But it still, it sticks with the property though, so it's like almost, like you can ask them and they can tell you whatever they want. And like next year, sell the place.
So why ask it?
So that's.
I thought it's that some people, they're skeptic, because everyone wants, if you're asking for parking, I tend to be I'm very supportive of parking variances and not requiring people to put in more parking because it's like, and that's, but I also do think it's fair to say, why do you think that why does this variance not, part of the standard of variance is why is it that, does this cause a hardship? I don't use the term hardship.
Yes.
This is impose burdens on neighbors, and I think you can say, like the person, the Arden Road variance could say, this isn't putting a burden on neighbors because I expect that, first of all, we could share parking, second of all, there's plenty of parking in Arden, and third, people who want to rent this place are more, they're gonna know that they're 2 steps from the bus, and if you rent this place, you're gonna know that parking is gonna be a hassle, so that if it's someone who has needs lots of parking, you're less likely to go there. So you have all those, but those are the kind of things they could say. They wouldn't necessarily say, we're gonna accommodate 4 cars by putting something in our yard. Or is that too much for the form? Because the other thing is, if we ask too much information, we're creating hoops.
Well, you're not asking in a way that's difficult to do. Check.
Well, and the other thing to look at is that we're gonna ask those questions when they get here.
Yeah.
So, and as, you know, we brought up the question of square footage, we have these questions and we'll get the applicants before us. They'll commonly come up and say, well, I don't know the answer to that question, to a question we ask every single applicant, so why not have the form so we can get that guarantee we have an answer when they come here.
At least they thought about it. Because one of my attempts is I try to make no surprises, because I don't think you get good answers from people when you surprise them. And so, like if I know if a neighbor's gonna raise a certain objection, I want them to know that. If a neighbor tells me they're gonna say something, I want them to know, here's the problem that you're gonna get.
You're gonna be asked this question.
When you put this criticism in, you're gonna be pushed back in this way. Because that figure then everyone gets better. You don't get good answers when you ambush. Sometimes people think if you ambush someone, you get more candid answers.
That's only on
technical
TV.
information.
And probably not.
It's only on some talk show.
So the sense I get is we need what information, so the information we should put in the ADU form is one, a checklist. Do we want a separate ADU form, or separate habitable space?
I like that.
Habitable ADU slash.
Yeah, it's not, these
One form
questions
should
we're asking
be
are
able
not
to-
going to be applicable to somebody who's coming before us to ask for a side yard setback variance because they're
Right.
adding on to their.
So it's basically
Main
adding.
Yeah, adding a form, a habitable space form, and saying, and one of them is a checklist of features, of relative features.
Don't I sound like a realtor or something?
Of relative, and I don't think we said, we're not gonna ask them
No, just have a toilet.
if parking variance.
A water. Oh, there you
If-
go.
I'm thinking like the filters on Realtor.com. This has a swimming pool, and 2 parking spots, and a dishwasher.
And a bidet.
Yeah.
If parking, I just give her generally, if parking variance, explain why you will meet the people's parking needs, or why you won't meet, including why you
Why
might.
you would need to.
Maybe phrase it more like, what is the anticipated impact of parking reduction on surrounding properties?
Surrounding property.
So that's not a checklist question.
No, that would not
That's
be
a
a
little
checklist,
block.
that's another,
Another whole.
Wait, say that question again. How'd you phrase that?
what is the anticipated impact of parking reduction on surrounding properties? Something along those lines.
I think that's a valid point, and maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but is it about the impact on parking, or is it about what you're gonna do with the parking on your property?
It's about the impact on.
Well, this would only apply when they're asking for a reduction.
Oh,
anyway.
agreed.
So it was just the one case.
But that's a common,
If applicable,
common,
what would?
yeah. I think if you're asking for a parking variance, what's the impact on the neighbor?
Yeah,
think
they can say it'll blend in, nobody's gonna notice, there's plenty of parking, but that still doesn't tell me, where are you gonna park the car? Like, 2 blocks away,
Or people
or?
That means they have an answer.
Well, people can just say, like, the Arden people can say, they're going to park on Arden or they're gonna take the bus.
Right.
Those are their two choices, park on Arden or take the bus.
I mean, I'm not advocating them to make residential applicants who are asking for 2 spaces do a full parking study like we do for commercial developers, but at least some answer to that question is
I think some of,
helpful.
maybe this is less of the getting us the information, but making them think about it so they're not shocked and amazed when they come into the. So it's like doing your homework to prepare, it's more like doing homework to prepare for the oral test than it is.
I think one of the things we should do if we're gonna add this form is go back and think about all the questions that we normally ask an applicant that's coming before us asking for these habitable spaces.
Yeah.
And put those into the form, just so they're prepared when they get here. I mean, I'm sure we can come up and go back through minutes and come up with a list of the top 5 questions that we ask every single applicant that comes before us when they're asking for garage size variance with habitable space and height variance. You can probably come up with a good list of that and put those in the screening form.
Does someone here want to take a shot at drafting the screening form in the before our next meeting? Then when you go to the commission meeting, just give them a report that this is what we're doing.
Okay.
They'll ask about it. Does someone want to take that? I'm trying not to take on the responsibility of doing all that stuff. Just part of it, the problem is I took on the responsibility, and that's why it took us 2 extra months to get to this point.
And I'd like to say you're doing a fine job.
Yes. Yeah, I can take a stab at it.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's because you're one of the most skeptical people.
You're not wrong.
No, but that's an advantage.
Take that as a compliment.
No, it was very much meant as a compliment, because if you're the most skeptical person, you're gonna see pitfalls, things that you want answers to that might persuade you to change your mind or that you might find important. And then you've heard the rest of us, so you know what we're thinking.
Happy to take a stab at for something.
It's gonna lean his way, now we all got it.
Well,
It's,
when you stab, throw it my way.
Okay.
and then in all the forms, in the other 2 forms, we'll just add the question, have you spoken with your nearby neighbor?
Yeah.
With your nearby neighbors?
Yeah.
And that's just a yes or no.
Right.
Yes, no, or I will do it before the meeting.
And maybe a comment in there, say, encouraging them to get a written statement of support from their
Oh,
neighbors.
yeah.
I already,
We don't have to get that in the
I already-
screen form, we just say it's encouraged that you bring that to the meeting.
I do put that in the intro letter to people.
That's right.
That,
The more places you put it, the more likely they're gonna see it and
They're gonna see
actually.
my only concern is I want to be careful about telling people you've got, because I say in the letter, it's not required, because it really isn't
No, it
required.
really is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say on the screening form it's required, it's just say, hey, it's.
Some people find it helpful.
Yeah.
It's probably too much to talk about a maintenance agreement on that form.
I was thinking that though, I think
I know.
that's important.
It's not a bad,
Uh,
but
But that's only applicable to.
it just doesn't apply very
That
often.
applies as much to
Hardly.
these.
Fences
as-
as other things.
It's a sub-question, do I be talking, spoken?
That one's more to the single family places and also some of those things, the way I look at it, is
You run into it with garages, people wanna put the garages right on the
Right on
property
the line,
line.
so they have more room, yeah.
You run into it there, so it's applicable to, I think, a lot of the applications.
But it doesn't come up very often.
and the other thing I was
I mean, you gotta share that close one.
the other thing we need to be concerned about asking a joint maintenance agreements is I don't know the law of joint maintenance agreements. And I don't know what's binding, I don't know what they have to do to be binding, and I don't like to tell people they should do something unless I really know they should do
Then
something.
let's tone it back and say, not have you discussed a maintenance agreement with your neighbor, but have you coordinated the need for maintenance, with your neighbor?
How will you maintain?
Yeah.
Have you considered long-term maintenance?
Yes, that
Something
sort of
along
stuff.
those lines.
Then when they get here, we can say, some people find it helpful to have this in writing, great
I
plan,
mean,
whatever.
both of my neighbors have to come on use my property always said to both of them, we don't need to do this, but if any of us moves, we should. So that you're not leaving somebody else this
But
spot.
do you have a plan for maintaining, if it's a small setback, do you have a plan for maintaining the property? Is that something, Gretchen, do you think that's something we should be asking? Maintain, like if they're asking for a zero setback garage, should we be asking them, do you have a plan for, how do you plan to maintain the garage?
I don't know that we can enforce any of these. These are just ways to get more information. And again, what we're trying to do with the screening form more is prepare the applicant for the questions we're gonna ask.
So Linda, could we just do like, in your email response back to folks, like, here's a list of questions you will likely be asked at the committee instead of a form? Because my issue, like, especially here tonight, is like somebody will say something and then the group will express some skepticism that what they said is actually what's going to happen. So why are we asking folks to agree to something that we're then going to express skepticism that that's not actually going to happen?
I think, maybe maybe we should leave the maintenance agreements out of.
Oh, I wouldn't, no.
Okay,
I think we should leave it like
that's, I
this.
think,
It's
so
out.
that's,
I think that's way too
how that the only,
I do like that suggestion of here's included in the materials we provided, here's a list of common questions for each type of application that we get that you can expect us to ask. It'd be wise to be prepared with an answer. I do like, that's a very good suggestion.
As long as it's not, that wasn't on the list.
well, the only thing it's already a pretty long intro letter, and gets to the point, if you give them too much information, the relevant stuff gets lost. And if they're coming in for a garage variance where they want a 20-foot garage, which we haven't had for a long time, just a straight 20-foot garage variance, then do they really,
They don't know how to build those.
but we can overdo it, and you ask too much, if you give too much information, then useful stuff gets lost.
But to your point of not wanting to surprise people,
Yeah.
you gave them the information.
Yeah.
But again, it's also, if you're giving a lot of information, the more places you put that information in, and the more times it's repeated, the more likely it's gonna be.
They'll settle in.
I don't know, to an extent. I mean, at some point, it's like, it just becomes noise. So
Yeah,
I think it contributes too much.
Then you get to the Columbus City Schools parent communication
Okay.
process, which is send them 20,000 emails, and somewhere in at least 4 of those will have useful information.
Yeah. We're gonna send it to you 15 different ways, and you can only
Make
opt
a
out to
form.
everything or nothing.
And at the bottom say, yes, there will be a quiz.
But
Yes, there will be.
maybe to come up with, if people want to come up with a list of questions to be at the next meeting, questions that you think people should be warned that they will receive here that that they don't seem to be prepared for now. Maybe that's something to think about between now and the next meeting. What are people surprised at being asked? And like, I do think like the ratio of square footage of the house to the project is relevant to the zoning process, because if you have a 3,000 square foot house, it makes a lot more sense to have a bigger ADU than it does if you have a 1,500 square foot house. And so that's why it's relevant information.
I remember that case we had where the garage was bigger than the house. You're like,
But there's also, why don't you can't just attach this to your house, and that way you could solve so many. You just attach this to your house, that this all
goes away. It all goes away.
And maybe there are a whole bunch of those we're not seeing, that we're only seeing the exception. Maybe that's also something to add, is for habitable spaces, what makes it so that you can't, why is it preferable to do this as a separate unit that is attached to the house?
That's a question to ask?
Yeah, because you're saying, why do you need this variance? And if you don't need if you could just add on to and although maybe that's not as such a useful question, because if they could just add on to their house, they probably would be doing that.
No, I would not say that's necessarily true. I would never think to disrupt the, like, well, hard to say historic, but I mean, it's 100 years old and it wasn't meant to have a garage attached to it, so I would not dare do that.
Yeah, but to add an addition to it,
As long as it's tasteful, but it wouldn't be a garage.
no,
Oh.
we're not talking about the garage, we're talking about the house.
Well,
Add an addition to the
you know,
house as opposed
yes.
to extending.
Here's what
Gotcha.
I suggest, Michael, is err on the side of inclusion in your proposal, because it's much easier for us to say, no, we don't need that, than it is to add stuff. And we will take what you bring to us as a brainstorming starting point, not as this is written in stone. I'll see if I can find out who has the Word version of these forms, because I don't. But
I don't remember the committee.
I think we did these.
I'll look in my computer.
See if you can
I
see.
don't think I have that.
And maybe we have to recreate it, and the problem is I don't have Word on my computer, I have Pages, so.
I can convert them. It just takes some effort.
Some madness.
Okay, so the only thing we'll add to these is the question, have you spoken to your neighbor?
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
so, but then everyone here knows when the next meeting is, so I'll skip that. Do I have any objection to adjourning? We adjourn at 8:56.
And then